Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Committee on Thursday, May 15th, 2025. I now call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Lisa, can you please take the roll call?
Member Melissa Bates.
Here.
Member Getz.
Here.
Member Johnson.
Here.
Vice Chair Boyd.
Here.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Jennifer, would you like to lead the pledge today?
Absolutely. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the order of the agenda as presented?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Alisa, roll call vote, please.
Member Melissa Bates.
Approve.
Member Getz.
Approved.
Member Johnson.
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd.
Approved.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates.
Approved.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to consent items. Lisa, can you please introduce this item?
Items on consent are typically routine and will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the committee on any consent item on the agenda, which has not been pulled by the committee for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes.
Okay, we'll start with in the room. Anybody in the room? No? Anybody on Zoom who'd like to address the consent items? Okay, I see nobody, so then we're going to go on and move on. Committee members, do you have any items you would like to pull from the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent items.
I move to approve the consent items.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, having heard a motion and a second to approve consent items, Lisa, would you please take a roll call vote?
Member Melissa Bates.
Approve.
Member Getz.
Approved.
Member Johnson.
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd.
Approved.
Chair Jacobson Bates.
Approved.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to public communications for non-agenda items. Lisa, introduce the item, please.
This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to address the committee on items not on the agenda. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes and may speak only once. State law does not allow the committee to discuss or act on issues not on the agenda, except to briefly respond or to ask staff to follow up on such items.
Okay, we're going to start with in the room. I see no public comments here. Is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, then we will go ahead and move on to discussion items. Staff, can you please start by introducing item 4A and reporting and providing the report?
Discussion and possible action to approve facade changes at 1693 Mission Drive, APN 139143025.
Good evening, DRC members. So before you this evening is an action item for 1693 Mission Drive, Denmark Square facade enhancement. So the applicant submitted for a zoning clearance on a facade enhancement of less than 500 square feet for the building that is proposed to be an ice cream shop. City staff had reviewed the proposed plans, and since it met the objective design standards at the time, including the brick and the proposed half timbers and colors, the city staff provided a zoning clearance, and the applicant proceeded to do the facade work. The applicant had exceeded the initial zoning clearance of 500 square feet, and city staff had informed the applicant of that. Concurrently speaking, the applicant is also working on an entitlement review for a change of use and a new structure at both 1693 and 1687 Mission Drive. So that will not be a part of this discussion this evening, as this will be an item that will be brought back to the DRC for the specific new structure at a later time once the project is deemed complete by city staff. So the proposed project will simply involve the structure located at 1693 Mission Drive. The exterior, there will be proposed exterior paint known as green onyx, which is shown in your attachments. This color is proposed to be utilized on the balconies upon completion. You can see some of the colors right now on the building. Some of those colors will be proposed to be covered by brick, but the attachment that was included in your staff report is the proposed final color. The majority of the facade is currently proposed to be a brick structure, including facades facing both Mission Drive and Halsaw Road, as well as internal corridors. The applicant is also proposing adding half timbers throughout the existing structure. The color of the proposed timbers are to be changed from the blue-gray color, which is faded over time, into a darker black color. Also, as a part of the proposed project, the applicant is proposing exterior light changes that are fully shielded and cut off as required by the objective design standards. So getting into the three sort of documents that we go off of for this document. So the first one is the design guidelines. So again, objective design standards have been recently adopted. Our design guidelines were adopted back in 1989. And so these adopted design guidelines do remain in place. Those guidelines, the proposed project before you this evening does meet pertinent guidelines, including buildings should demonstrate compatibility in materials and consistency throughout all elevations. So in this instance, the applicants are proposing taking wood siding and converting that into an all brick facade consistent throughout the structure itself. Half timbering that uses and emulates the authentic appearance and pattern of historic buildings in Europe. Again, city staff has reviewed this against the design guidelines as well as objective standards, and that the building should be designed so that the half timbering is darker in color and contrast to resemble the finish of traditional old world buildings. So contrary to some of the other buildings that are existing within the city of Solvang, which uses cement and or stucco, the applicant's proposing wood half timbers, which typically that's what old world Danish would utilize. The second document that is that we use for review is the objective design standards. For those that are watching, or just sort of as a reminder, city staff, the city council, as part of its as part of its zoning ordinance in 2024, approved a set of design objective standards within the village area known as Design District 1. So the proposed uses are consistent with the standards in the Village Mixed Use District, as well as the proposed uses located in the DD1 Design District overlay. So again, objective standards act as a starting point for review of buildings, particularly those that are of non-residential use. And objective standards are in the staff report. So city staff has outlined in a table for you how the proposed project meets those objective standards. So finally, we do have a proposed color change from what's currently existing. So again, the adopted design guidelines do not have specified color palettes or adopted color schemes for the village. It specifically punted that out. Our community design element, which is a part of the 2045 Solvang General Plan, does not contain language in regards to specific colors. However, there is language in regard to sort of color hues that on why those are utilized throughout the city, or excuse me, throughout the village. There is objective standards for colors for the half timber, and those are to be of dark color hues, and so which this project does meet. And so again, the DRC is to provide a decision based on the applicant's proposed color schemes. So how does your actions this evening tie all together? So the DRC shall provide a decision on the proposed color. City staff does recommend the DRC approve the proposed brick facade and half timbers based on the proposed project meeting objective standards for consistency with the general plan community design element, as well as objective standards, and it meets the intent of the adopted design guidelines. Adopted colors and facade improvements are to be shown as a part of building permit 25028, which the applicant has already submitted. However, the city staff did have corrections for and has kicked this back out to the applicant. So the decisions rendered decisions rendered by the DRC this evening would need to be reflected on a newly resubmitted building permit application or revisions that address our concerns, and that's how we will address the DRC action this evening. And with that, I'll open up the questions of the DRC members.
Questions, committee? Of staff? I do have a couple of questions. The hardscape is separate And that was tell me the process how we got to today.
Hardscape was submitted under the previous zoning code. And so the hardscape was basically a like for like in terms of the back pavement. So the pavement and the landscaping, since it's a like for like, and the trees were being removed due to the damage of underlying infrastructure as well as the existing pavement. That just came under a review of a city staff level. There were items in the code that allow for city staff to go ahead and just do that at a city staff level. So that's why those are not on the table this evening.
So that included the courtyard at the front and the fountain and all of that as well.
There's nothing in the code that requires the DRC to approve the fountain to be enhanced. There's nothing there.
Understood,
Our
yeah.
design guidelines, our objective design standards, our zoning ordinance have nothing written down that those type of items need to go back to the DRC or for the DRC to be heard. So that's why those never went to you. There was a instance where the applicant had proposed modifying the statute, and you have asked questions of that. But again, if you look back at our objective, or you look back at our design guidelines that were adopted in 1989, you look back at our zoning code, nothing explicit or prohibits the items from going to the DRC or even being approved by city staff.
Okay, interesting. Just getting a little history of how we got to the project at this point before it came to us. Thank you for explanations. Anybody else? Okay, then we're going to open it up to public comment.
I have a question,
Oh.
just to make sure I understand where we're going. On the proposed colors, everything is going to be brick and half timbers with the exception of the balcony rails, which are green.
That is city staff's understanding. The applicant is here this evening to verify that.
So that's what we're looking at as a proposal.
Correct. So again, initially in the new zoning ordinance to which this application came in under, any facade changes over 500 square feet that meet the objective standard could be approved by city staff. So basically what we're looking at is windows, those like-for-like windows, those previously had to come to the DRC. Well, our objective standards is now say if it meets these standards for those deemed smaller projects, city staff can approve those. So in this instance, city staff looked at the proposed facade. There was no color change at the time. So it looked at the proposed facade, it looked at the half timbers, it looked at the windows, and it met the objective standards. So therefore, it was able to go on. But again, here the applicant went above and beyond the 500 square feet. The applicant was notified of that. The applicant did stop work. And so we are now here before you this evening to render a DRC action.
Okay. So even though the full project was much greater than 500 square feet, you as staff are allowed to let them begin with up to 500 square feet and bypass.
No, because the initial project was simply just under 500 square feet. What came in initially was just the one facade change on the ice cream building itself.
Okay.
No more, no less. Nothing else was proposed to be changed. Then it went well beyond that, and we had notified the applicant they had went, one, beyond it without a building permit, and two, beyond it without getting the DRC approval.
Okay, that's why I said I'm just kind of trying to figure out how we got here today with the work that's complete. Okay, so now we're going to move it on to public comments. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak to this? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, I'm going to leave public comment open because I think we may have questions for the applicant. Want to start by saying really nice to see the improvements happening at the Denmarket Square. It's looking really good. I think our concerns are not, my concern is not about the aesthetic and the improvements that I see happening, but rather the sequence of the events that led to the project being at such a extended completion point before it came in front of this body. So that's why you've been hearing all those questions. Questions, group here?
No, I think it looks
Okay.
wonderful.
I think it's great.
I'd love, Ed, would you consider coming up and just telling us, just to really clarify where the green is going to be used? Because what we see on the building is significantly different, I believe, than what the proposed completion project will look like, and Juliet balconies and such. Maybe you could just give us a quick summary. And identify yourself, please.
My name is Ed St. George, and I am the applicant. And there's a song that says, don't say you're sorry because you're not, you're only saying sorry because you got caught. And that comes to my mind. But I am sorry that it's like staff's having to take this. But it did look so good, and it was just great. And so we did go well beyond the 500. So I am going to say I'm sorry. Anyway, so what you see, a lot of the green that you see is going to be removed. On the picture is how it will appear. Okay.
I'm just going to interrupt you. Could we bring up a couple of photos? Like, can we show the east elevation from LSL Road, for instance, where we see the green paint along with the half timbers? It's on page 10 in the packet.
Looking for this one
Yeah, or that one.
on the top of the.
Yeah. We're trying. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, no problem.
Just so we can get some clarity, because I'm hearing no green, and yet I'm seeing green. So just kind of trying to get an idea.
I believe is what I was trying to clarify earlier, that the green appears to be on the panels of the second floor balcony only.
The green will be where it's, you don't want to put brick where it's floating.
Right.
So the green is where there will be where you see T&G, okay, that will remain green, because brick wouldn't make sense there. And then the ceilings are green underneath
Underneath the overhangs,
which you can't see unless you're inside and looking up. But there won't be nearly as much green as you're seeing. Yes, that's exactly like the top picture. It'll look just like that if I get approved tonight.
There we go.
Yes, where in the back there, it wouldn't make sense to make any of that brick because obviously the brick wouldn't be floating. And then one of the things that I did learn that I should have learned a long time ago, and I would have been, if somebody would have pointed it out, it would have made sense. I think in the future you'll probably only see me use black for half timbers, because I didn't realize that what they used was tar to paint the timbers with. So
Yeah.
I think it looks better too with a contrast, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy with it too.
pops.
It really pops.
Okay, so this is the LSL Road elevation here. Raphael, do we have the Mission Drive elevation that we can pull up?
LSL.
Well, that's what I thought.
This is Allison.
Yeah, it says LSL.
Yeah, that is
Oh, yeah,
also.
top one.
Stop for just a second, Raphael, I'm sorry, could you go back? The Juliet balcony, I can't see that very well, and I wanted to get a little more info on that.
The only balconies in the back in the parking lot area.
No, there's Juliet balconies that are, but they're going to be black iron on the
Yeah.
Juliet,
Yes,
yeah, like the wrought iron that's required, yeah.
yes.
And they are above, kind of like above chomp,
No,
No, yes, there are.
yeah.
they're all.
Yeah, it'll, anywhere there's a 45,
Oh,
because the 45s are so odd that I thought, let's put Juliet balconies. It's just part of the existing architecture, so I just went ahead, okay, well, let's make it look like they were there for a reason.
right, right.
There we go, okay. Go the other way, Raphael. Keep going, yeah, because there's kind of like the entrance to Chomp where there's a Juliet balcony that's now in the middle of the image. And then you're replacing the windows with French doors in the Juliet balcony wherever. And there's 3 Juliet balconies?
Yeah, there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 5 in total on the building.
Okay,
And some of those, they will be doors, but some of them won't be able to open because they'll be just walls.
yeah.
I mean.
It's for
inside it.
aesthetics.
Yes. Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay. And the size, excuse me, the size of those balconies are something that's within the current codes? I can't tell a scale there.
Well, the Juliet, it'd be like 6 inches, maybe. Just, so you
Just
can-
kind of a tiny little,
Yeah, just something to put the pots on, maybe, flower pots.
yeah, it's, in looking at that image, it's just hard to tell if it's 3 feet, 6 feet, or a foot.
The only reason I had Jenny do that is because if you held it back to where it would only be like the 6, it just looked flush. It was no significance whatsoever, but they will be a maximum, but 6, maybe 8 inches. Whatever it is, you can put pots in, just little potted flowers. That's the distance. They're not meant to walk on
Yeah.
at all.
Thank you. There's kind of trying to get a handle on the specifics of the design.
Yeah, no furniture, no wetsuits, no surfboards, nothing like that.
Let's see. And lighting, I see all meets the standards. I had a comment on the black, the half timbers, to kind of make them look like they're creosote, the color. Recommendation, suggestion for your consideration, rather than being a glossy finish, having them be more of a toned down, I don't know what finish that would be, more like a matte finish, which gives it that more of that old world look than the shiny new paint. That's a suggestion. I don't know what that means for long-term viability on the paint, but for aesthetics.
No, I appreciate that. The problem with black is even a low luster black, this is not a high gloss. This is actually it's in between a low luster and a gloss. But if you go to almost a low luster, it does look flat, and then it's going to turn kind of chalky color really quick. That was my biggest concern, and that's what we were informed. I haven't painted anything black since I was 9 years old. I mean, this is all kind of new for me. But yeah, we'll do that. We did add UV protectant in all the black that we're putting in. I mean, it's easy to add to the paint, but I appreciate that.
Well, and in the old world aesthetic, I guess it's okay to have it look old too. That said, we don't want it to be deteriorating, so you're having to have extra maintenance. So I understand that aspect of it too. But just like I said, kind of for your consideration.
I have a question on the picture below, on the west elevation. What is the meaning or definition of the separate entitlement, Raphael?
So you notice a building that's not brick that says under separate entitlement. So essentially, we are just discussing the one property at this time, which is 1693. So I'll get to it right here. This building right here, to which I'm sort of circling, that is under a separate entitlement. So what that means is that there's a separate application currently ongoing for that. The applicant will be moving forward with additional facade enhancements, but under that application, which is separate, it'll come back to the DRC only for the facade and only for the facade and the 500 and the new building. For the uses, the DRC will have no discussion about because the uses are a residential use.
Right, thank you.
Oh, so the entitlement for the corner property there, where Dr. J's used to be and such, is I didn't
Yeah.
realize that'll be residential.
Correct. Yeah,
Got it.
residential on the top floors. So
Okay.
the DRC will City staff has already received the application. We've did our 30-day review. We've deemed the application incomplete because there's information that was required necessary. But it will need. We did inform the applicant that it will need to go to DRC specifically for the new structure that's over 500 square feet, and I'll leave it at that. And I would suggest the DRC members not go any further because again, this will be before you
Understood.
at another date.
Yeah. There's no landscape plan attached. Is there any?
The landscaping would be consistent with the rear landscaping that's already been approved by city staff.
Okay.
But again, with the separate entitlement and application, that will come back. So it's always kind of, if you look at it, this is and correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, this is a phased approach. So in this instance, the applicant is phasing in the primary structure and the facade improvements. That first floor will remain commercial, so they are putting that in. The second phase is the entitlement phase, which is essentially the conversion of the upstairs to residential uses, an addition of a new building that'll have partial commercial on the first floor and upstairs residential uses. So in that phase, we do get a landscaping plan, and that is another, again, an opportunity for the DRC to weigh in on what the final look as the property as a whole will be. Again, while you don't have one this evening, the entitlement phase provides that ability to look at the landscaping as a whole, as a completed project, as one, versus a phase one.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, the landscaping's coming back.
It is, again, under a separate project. So a
Understood.
whole separate review,
But
separate project.
it will also apply to this project at the same time. That's why I'm a little, I'm kind of getting it both ways.
You got to think of it as a two-phased approach. You're looking at just phase one, again,
Right.
which is why we've couched this as the facade only. Phase two is the new building, the neighboring property at 1687, 85, because essentially the application is to merge the two lots into one lot.
Okay.
Do the new addition, do the proposed residential units, and do a new landscaping on areas that aren't 20. So essentially,
Okay.
you get your shot at the pie at that stage.
Okay, understood. Just wanted to be really clear on that. Any other questions?
I have one that's off probably topic. Was there a reason why you blocked the, one of the entrances on the side to the left going, I think it's Second Street?
I think it's first
Or
place,
Street,
yeah.
sorry.
For the
The entrance,
for the parking lot? Yeah.
I know right now.
You don't want us to use it as a shortcut?
Well, actually, a lady got hit over there. An elderly woman got hit by a car while we were doing the project.
Yeah.
And I had kind of watched, and that was after we put in the additional speed bumps.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was two elderly people, and one went to the hospital.
I understand during construction. I was wondering afterwards.
I don't know yet. We are probably going to put maybe a swing bar
Yeah.
to open it during certain times, and that's kind of the idea. But for a majority of the people that go in that way, it seems they're just using it as a shortcut. As I said, I added extra speed bumps along there, and fate would have it. I wasn't there when it happened, but apparently she fell on the car, but the car almost hit her. It startled her, and that's what made her lose her balance and fall into the car. And so it's just the demographics of this community are getting up there.
I know.
And so if you're using that as a shortcut, you're probably in a hurry. And so Aaron and I kind of just decided, it's like, okay, we'll just close this off for the time being.
Okay.
It's a very awkward corner.
And for just full disclosure, city staff as well as Santa Barbara County Fire Department reviewed the proposed changes to the parking lot as a part of the parking lot project resurfacing, restriping, and demo and repair. And the Santa Barbara County Fire Department recommended the swing arm with a knock box. So just again, it is very, very fully permitted, reviewed by both Public Works, our department, and the fire department for fire safety purposes.
Okay, that's great. I
Good.
had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
No, it's a
I figured,
corner
well, we have
project.
you here.
So that's,
I
I have another question, again, maybe a little off topic, but when you say residential, how do you define residential? Is it different than Airbnb?
I am not going to discuss the merits of that project and the entitlement because, again, that is not before you this evening, and
Yeah.
it'll come
Yeah.
as another time.
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah.
just curious how you
I'm,
define
again,
it.
not.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate you being here to answer questions.
No, and I really appreciate the expediency in which staff, and I am sorry that I'm not sorry that I did the work, I'm sorry that the work caused problems for people. So
It looks great.
I-
And you're as fast as, construction folks that I've ever seen.
I've got a great
amazing.
crew.
Yeah,
I really
That's
it,
a
do.
good crew.
I've got-
it's good to see it moving forward. The biggest question I've had is why are the bricks have pink between? And I keep saying, because you've stopped work and the mortar's not there yet. So it's been the question on people's mind.
I think the best thing out of all of it is the fact that the Little Mermaid has been polished back to her original form, because we haven't seen that since she first arrived.
I don't even remember her looking like that. I thought she came with a patina, so I was completely surprised, but really wonderful to have water
Thank
back
you.
in there.
So a big
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll tell Manuel, he was on that for 4. We could only do it in the mornings because when people come would take pictures,
Yes.
they weren't really expecting to have a Latino labor in the picture. So we would have them stop around.
He
bad.
deserves a big thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you I appreciate that.
It's wonderful to see the improvements that are taking place. So now, we've had a discussion. I think we'll go ahead and close public comment. And do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
I move to approve the added scope of color. Is that appropriate?
The motion would be to approve the proposed plans as shown in the DRC packet and direct city staff to ensure that the building permit that is referenced,
I so move.
Landscaping.
building permit 25028 include the facades that are approved by the DRC and color.
All right, we've got a motion. Have a second.
I second that motion.
Okay, Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Member Melissa Bates?
Approve.
Member Getz?
Approve.
Member Johnson?
Approved.
Vice Chair Boyd?
Approved.
Chair Esther Jacobson Bates?
Approved.
Thank you.
Good to see progress and the improvements.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can I just give these to staff while everybody's here together? There's really nothing really to say other than, it has nothing really to do with my project, but this at every one of our parking lots. And once again, I do want to say this, and it's like, it's the first time I've ever said this, honestly. Staff has been amazing with us in explaining, because I'm over there a lot, asking probably what seems to be pretty stupid questions. And so it's been really appreciated. I mean, it really has. We're having a great time right now. I know my whole crew is. And so I do want to, like I say, just a fist bump. So,
All right, yep.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you. Okay. All right, let's see, where are we here? Okay, so I think we're going to go on to item 4B. Discussion and direction on color palette for this design book. Staff, please.
Discussion, direction on color palette for design handbook for the Village Design District, DD1.
Thank you, Lisa. So before you this evening, again, thank you very much, DRC. As I mentioned, I don't know if I've mentioned to you individually, but this iteration of the DRC will have a massive lift. And so city staff, I'm going to brought an item to the city council this past week about what is the DRC's role. The city council affirmed that your role is to be the stewards of design, particularly in the village and our commercial spaces. So we've alluded to this in staff reports. We've alluded to this in presentations, but now it's finally time to do the work. So we are proposing to move forward with a color palette. Just to give everyone a background, the adopted design guidelines don't have specified color. I've said that numerous times. You've read it in our staff reports. I'm saying it again. Community design element discusses colors. There are specific excerpts that we've given you in your staff report. We've given it as part of color discussions that talks, and it does actually a very good job of summarizing why we utilize certain colors in our village. And then finally, our objective standards, newly codified, refer to color palettes by the design handbook, but none exist. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because we were going to create the design handbook. However, it does include colors for half timbers and bricks, which also has been alluded to again. So during this time, especially previous DRC iterations, and Esther, the chairperson Bates can attest to this, we have had books in our office that are great examples. However, they're not codified. The first one is the color. So we reference these books. The first one is the Colors of Copenhagen book. And so the Colors of Copenhagen book provides sort of this color palette of potential facades that will be used during the time periods of Copenhagen. The next one, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not going to go there. But it was the I House. I had to look it up. Thank God for Google Translate. But this book, again, is actually a very decent color palette book. It's just a lot of colors, just a lot just hanging out and decision making. But it's got this great poster. And thank you, City Council, for allowing city staff to procure a large bed scanner. And so we ended up scanning this thing for the first time. But as a part of that book, it provides, at least from a designer's perspective, colors from a digitized world that we could then utilize those tools to get the colors in a paint world. So again, that's another book that is out there. It's a resource that applicants can use. And then again, we just got this facade handout. I tried I probably spent easily about 4 hours because once I start down the rabbit hole, I try my best to figure out the answer, but I couldn't come up with a manufacturer of a colored book. But essentially, it's these, the scan does it to complete the service. But essentially, it's like any good colored brochure, but of facades in Denmark and the trims, etc. So we have these good resources that are available to us. But again, nothing's codified. Nothing says thou shalt go this color. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish a palette because ultimately in the end, we got two types of applicants. We have applicant A, which is a property owner that has hired a design team or they're purchasing a property looking to redevelopment and they actually have the monies behind to hire someone who does this for a living, who will already do the research for them, who will ask the questions, and they'll give you back a story and a rhyme and reason of why they chose the color. That's great, but that doesn't happen very often. Majority of our applicants are property owners who have been here for a long time and simply just want to look around and seeing the new coats of paint in and around the community, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see. But they need to know where to start. And their typical answer is, or question is, what color would you like to see? Lisa and I attempt to stay mum most times because it comes back to, well, what would you like to do? And then it becomes, well, what color do they want to see? And so we feel that having a color palette gives someone a start. It gives those property owners who can't hire a design professional, who can't afford that extra level of design expertise to have a start. It also empowers this body. That's the bigger thing because then again, a color palette enables us to then make not necessarily streamlined decisions, but decisions based on something that's been adopted. So if an applicant comes back with an outlandish color that does not fit the rhyme and reason of our village, does not fit the design aesthetic that we have established, we as city staff have a very easy hammer to reject it. And if they are insistent of moving forward, then we can say, okay, give us a rationale on why. Give us why you want to use this color. Give us a reason of why the DRC can adopt a different color scheme for your building. Same thing will go with trims and half timbers. So what we're really looking for is to come back with hues of colors, not just, and then a little bit of specificity on the colors, but hues. We're talking the yellows, the reds, the blues, the greens. And again, these are starting points for applicants. For tonight's meeting, and this will be a series of meetings. So we are starting tonight. We're going to have a meeting in June to talk about this again, and in July, and probably August, because we will be doing this in a series. So it'll be these colors, and then the next step is actually taking, obviously, the design handbook, which is basically a translation of our objective standards, and then trying to put more graphics to it, adding pictures, just giving applicants more information of what the expectation. Again, the idea of us as city staff, and particularly our DRC members, of negotiating with developers should have died a long time ago. You have a standard. The standard is your gold bar. That's what you want. If that's what we want for our community, that's where we need to start. And it's okay to start there. This is the minimum point of start bar. It's not down here. It's not just some building. We know and we understand that our village is our economic engine. It is our jewel. It is who we are as a fabric of our community. It's what we take pride in. So if we take pride in it and this is the fabric of our community, then let's show it. Let's bring developers who want to redevelop, who want to develop in our village. Let's make them hit the standard. No more, no less. And again, that provides a developer certainty that knows that that's sort of the trade-off. I'm going to come and develop in your town. Okay, where are my standards and where do I start the conversation with? And for far too long, we started the conversation way out in left field. We really need to start the conversation way back at the pitching mound. So again, giving developer certainty. So for tonight's meeting, we're focusing on the facades and color groups. And the easiest one, eliminate any colors we don't want to see. It's pretty easy. One thing I did, and I will plant this bug in your ear if we want to go there. If you want to see a specific color set along a street, such as Alisal or Copenhagen, hey, we can do that. That's the fun thing about this exercise, is we can be specific on where do we want certain colors. What if we don't want white? Well, I'm glad that we've done white on a couple buildings, 5, 10, 15 years ago. But if that's a color that at this point in time we do not want anymore, it's okay to say we don't want it, or we'll take it under certain exceptions and provide the exceptions. Again, give people a roadmap to where they need to go. So myself and Lisa will be working on this item over the next few meetings. We'll be feeding in the information to you, and essentially this is a working session. So as we feed back information at the next meeting, we want feedback, and then we'll get feedback on something new. And then we'll just sort of repeat the cycle until we get a document in our hands that we feel comfortable with giving to the Planning Commission and say, hey, the DRC came up with this through our discussions. Take a look at it, and then ultimately take it to council for adoption. And the ultimate goal is repealing the 1989 design guidelines. They've served us a great service for so many years, but it is time to retire them and adopt these guidelines and remind ourselves that these guidelines are a living and breathing document, which means if there are times to change things, let's change them. If there are processes that don't work as well, that's okay. Let's make a change. So I'll open up to the DRC for discussion.
For purposes of tonight, Raphael, do you want us to vote on colors we like or don't like, or what are we trying to do?
We're looking for colors to eliminate, and so that way we can give a product back that's a little bit more in tune. So my vision of this is to bring back colors that are grouped in hues, reds, oranges, yellows, earth tones if we want to go there, blues and greens. So again, our job basically is to hear where you want us to go. And then Lisa I'll be working with Lisa. We're going to try to color match this with colors provided by Sherwin-Williams, as well as Dunn & Edwards. Those are two local companies. And again, welcome to the digital age. We're able to feed these colors based on what's called Pantone colors, and then be able to get back the actual color spec from Sherwin-Williams. So ultimately, in the end, we get a guidebook, and then if we so choose, we can potentially order a custom chip book that goes with it. So
That's based on the colors that you gave us on these.
those are based on the reference books that we have in our office.
Raphael, do I need to open this up for public comment and that type of thing for this section of the meeting?
We will open up for public comment, but I first have a discussion with the DRC, and then at that point, if DRC members chimed in, then you would open up to public comment and public can
Okay,
chime in.
thank you for clarifying. I asked Lisa, just for you to know, I passed her a note and I asked her to bring these actual documents over, the book and the color chart here. And the reason I asked for that is when we look at it on the screen, when we look at it on our printout, they're all variations on a tone. So what are the actual colors we're looking at is what I wanted to see. And I know that you've done your best to get very close to the colors.
So on the iHouse book, that one which you have in your hand, Chairperson, that one actually is pretty easy to color match because there are color codes on the top for designers on the digital, which allows us to quickly color match them and then feed them into a system. As a matter of fact, Lisa, with one of our applicants, was able to color match a couple colors pretty
Great.
well through the Sherwin-Williams website.
Yeah.
And the applicants didn't choose those colors, but it was sort of an exercise for this at the same
And
time.
these are the
Sorry.
colors that are on this sheet. Those colors are the
Correct,
ones that-
yeah. I think too, thinking back on the many-year process of getting the general plan done and talking about the design district for the Danish design, the conversation really circled around the old world and looking at colors that kind of look like rural Denmark and old world Denmark. And I know what I often gets referenced, and I think you even have a picture of it, is the Nyhavn area, which is what is shown here. However, those are color palettes that aren't old world colors because they couldn't mix those kind of things. So there's some very philosophical conversation. Do we want it to look like contemporary Copenhagen, which is a city, or do we want it to look like more of the village, which is what the design element was based on and what Solvang was built on? And being able to pick out vibrant colors that tend towards the more organic side as opposed to the super bright, which is what the Nyhavn area is there, which doesn't include any half timbers. So there's conversation here for our committee, and what I would really like to ask of staff is that, we've got these multiple meetings coming up. Before you spend a ton of time looking at color matching, hopefully we can get the palette kind of approved before you go to that work. But I would like to ask if we can please have another public workshop to have an interaction that is specific to colors.
While we could, but this is a public meeting.
Understood, but there's limitations on public speaking, and I know a lot of people are interested in this and want to come back when it's a little further developed. And we had our workshop, but there really wasn't, that wasn't the time to have the conversation to dive into it. So that is what I've heard in the community, just because it allows that kind of interaction. One person can talk, but then they can respond to somebody else's comments, and we can respond freely as opposed to, because really we're not supposed to engage somebody at the podium, which we kind of did with Ed and kind of pushed that, but that was, information seeking. So that's why I'm asking for that consideration as we move along. And you don't have to say yes or no at this point. But I would like you to consider that. It's my request. So all of that said, we've got the colors here, and now you've heard some of, what I'm sharing that's based upon, kind of all the years of sitting here, and of course, a lot on the general plan work that we did for all those years as well.
I like your idea of maybe having a street with brighter maybe colors that we pick, or different colors than another street, and make it a little mixture of Denmark?
Sorry, I was like, do you want to respond? Yeah, it was a brainchild a little bit, noodling about how to present this to you as a body. And again, this is an organic conversation because there's no decision to be made. There's no, we can take public comment. You most certainly don't have to put 3 minutes on public comment if there was public here. And so there are ways about that, and I take your request into consideration. But yeah, I mean, there are ways to do this. If the DRC then so chooses to want to present a certain stretch of roadway or a block to have that, then from there that becomes, okay, how do we make that happen, and how do we codify and change our objective standards to make sure that happens in that manner?
It adds significantly to the complexity of it. I think one of my big things is, in having been doing this for so many years, when I started doing this, people literally came in and just tell us what you want. We just want to leave tonight with something approved. Just tell us. And of course, that doesn't really work, and it doesn't allow for public comment. So this is going to be awesome, having a palette put together. And it's wonderful having starting points for it as well. We have a lot of requirements in the code for half timbers. So we have to remember that half timber buildings are different than that, because there's no half timbers there. And everything in Solvang has half timber, except for Lansby, where they painted over the half timbers, which was the exception that proved the rule in Solvang. And it was also black and white, because one of the things I would love to see is that we don't have white, and maybe not even black, or not a black and white combination, which is super trendy right now, although it's kind of going by the wayside a bit too, and it's kind of that immediately dating things. So, and I think that's why it's so important to have this body, because even if we have this awesome palette all done, all codified, that doesn't mean that the applicant is going to necessarily put all those pieces together in a way that works, and then it sits in the environment and looks good with the building to the left and to the right, and not to mention from across the street. So when we're already seeing that, right now in downtown, so we know what we don't want to have happen.
I guess you have to decide how many colors do you want to give people choices, right? Because sometimes too many is confusing, right? So should we just have a limit to how many?
No.
I think it's great to have a variation and have the blues, the greens,
give them all.
and have it be from something muted to something more of a deeper tone. I think
More
that's
vibrant.
Yeah, I think that's good. And sometimes, there's been talk about doors, and I did see a reference in here to bright colors for doors. I don't know where that came from, Raphael, in the standards. Where
The
did that? Is that-
1989 design guidelines.
Oh, okay. Well, and I think that is the kind of the challenge at times, because the definition of bright, does that mean like the bright yellow that's on the arts and crafts store, which isn't an old world color at all, but it is bright? There's bright colors that still fit within more organic tones that were typical to Old World Denmark. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. So that's a lot of talking on my part here.
For me, I like the somewhat more muted colors in all the different palettes, and I would say that we want to offer multiple palettes.
More, yeah.
But I like the more gray aspects rather than the more saturated colors. Like Lotus, to me, on attachment B in the blue camp, I feel is too stark But this is completely, and again, this is all very subjective.
Hold it up and show us which one you're looking at.
She's talking about this one.
This one here,
I love them all.
yeah, that one.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I love them all.
Now, see, I
But you
kind of,
have to pronounce them in Danish.
I would be happy to.
Loose Jazagro.
so I think what I look at with them is what colors, if we're supposed to be old world Denmark, so what colors could they have made in the 17 and 1800s?
I personally,
what I'm
I
looking at.
feel we should cater. So here's how I see it. Number one, I feel we should cater to both sides. I feel we should have old world, but I also feel we should order a palette that also caters to a little bit of the new side, because this is an up and coming generation. And we're not talking about anything crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I do feel we need to,
Day-glow?
not day glow yellow or, bright orange, but I just feel like there are some really pretty outstanding Pantone colors that could really be nice.
Do you see something here, Jennifer, that fits the description that you're talking about? 'Cause
I love them
do.
all. Like, I love all. I love all of this. I also feel like, so I'd like to give it a little more of a broader option. I also feel that, of course, standard timbers, maybe, you have your choice, like maybe 4 choices, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we could be very specific on the timbers. I also feel that these are owners of buildings and they should have the choice. I don't feel like, I don't want to limit anybody. That's the problem. I don't feel like they need to be limited.
That's basically what we're talking about doing, though.
Yeah.
But I
We're
don't,
creating a book saying these are the
right.
available colors.
I know I want to, I realize that, but I don't want to say like, oh, you're on this block, so you have to paint this color. What I would prefer to say, or what I would prefer to limit everybody on is, hey, if you, like we did with, not Rasmussen's, but with Linda Rasmussen, you're next door to this building. I can't have you be yellow and you're purple, or and you're, you know what I mean? Like, it needs to blend and look nice, especially when you're consecutively all together. Right? And that's the standard we need to set for sure. We cannot, and that's the other standard, we cannot have how Rasmussen is half painted on the outside. We cannot have that. It's got to be one color.
Right. Or it's not.
And it would have been nice. It actually would have been nice tonight to ask St. George if he would be kind enough to just paint that little outside, just that little round one back white again. Just to,
That's kind of a step beyond just
That's- yeah.
determining this book.
but I'm just saying there's certain standards that should be set where the color options should be. Give him some option. Give people.
Well,
let's look towards the future, because
Isn't that what we're doing today, though?
that's
That
what
is
I'm
what we're
trying
doing.
to
And
say.
Stick only in the old world.
Yeah, I don't want to stick in the old world. I want to keep it
Well,
old
this-
world and open to,
Well, these are brighter colors.
yes.
Well,
Sure.
they are, for sure.
Yeah, I love 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we should talk about what to eliminate.
Well, that's what we're actually challenged with here today.
And I don't want to eliminate. I just feel like people should have a good choice.
Let me make a suggestion. I went around town yesterday and took the color charts here, both of them, and basically crossed off the ones I didn't like.
Yeah.
And left all the ones that I thought were good. If we all did something like that, we could come up with colors that we all agree on, colors that only I don't like, but everybody else likes, so therefore they go in the book and so forth, and then if it's a 3-2 vote, it goes in or it goes out, whichever way we're voting.
Agreed. So, let's start with the first page,
Well,
which
and I was
is,
just looking at the ones that were supposed to be for facades.
okay. Well, these are as well. So this is just two different sources. So this is the source for that palette, and what it's showing is the buildings that are on Newhound and Denmark. It's showing how the layers of colors over the centuries, because they've been painted and repainted and painted again. And that is consolidated onto the one page. And as,
And they're gorgeous.
as I look at that, yeah, that would be nice to put that up.
They're gorgeous.
It's page 23 in our packet.
I love all of them.
There we go.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, because I was getting a migraine looking at that earlier. It was like we're talking colors, and it's like, whoa. People in the audience can't see, but the screen is turning from pink to purple to white to yellow.
Too many dead concerts.
But we can look behind us. And the reason that I asked him to bring the book was because you can see that the palette that we're
different
looking at it doesn't have the vibrancy of these colors. So does anybody want to take a look at the book to actually see the colors? Are there any colors on this particular palette that you feel need to be excluded?
I didn't actually go through that
I
palette.
love them all.
Yeah, I felt as though these all were appropriate, and of course, they aren't necessarily as grouped
Right.
as these other palettes.
Yeah, my opinion is that everything on page 23, which is up on the screen right now, I think is good to have in the colored book. I like them all.
I love them all.
Yeah,
On page 24, I have a couple, there's a couple that I have issues with.
okay, I agree. I think we have a consensus on page 23 that the colors that are included there are all colors that we agree would be good options. So let's talk about page 24. We know Jennifer likes everything. So,
Jennifer.
yeah, so,
Basically, don't like it. No, I don't like several of them, but I like
okay.
some of them.
But let's go down the row. Okay, so what about you? Are there any that you are not favoring on this palette? And again, let's take a look
And
at
these are for
this.
facades, right? These are not for trims.
These are not for
These are
trims.
facades, building
Yes.
facades.
Yeah, and I think that we need to step back for a second. When we look at the palettes that are on page 23, when we said we liked them all, I think that we need to be a little bit more clear because some of them seem like they're half timber colors as opposed to facade colors.
Especially in the late classicism and historicism. I'm not crazy about the salmon pinky colors.
Oh, pink. Pink right here. Pink.
Yeah.
I
And
know.
and it
That's
is
just me.
significantly different in the book. So I
Bite your butt.
I would agree, and as I'm looking at particularly on the top row on the far, on the third row on our book,
Yeah.
that seems like a half timber color. Well, and actually, that's what it says. It says woodwork.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
I think we should maybe check some of these as being acceptable half timber colors
colors,
versus
okay.
facade colors.
That'd be great.
So what if we go that direction? So then let's look at top row 1.
You like those all, don't you?
Okay, so but look here, how different they are.
Yeah.
So I would shy away from the red, although I don't think it's a bad red, because the red on my sheet, I don't like. The red in the book
You like the
is
Baroque.
okay, yeah.
I think so too.
Then as you go over, there's this kind of purplish, brownish.
Maroony.
Yeah, that would not be my favorite for any application, because I think
Yeah.
being put on half timbers, you'd suddenly have a purple hue to it. Anybody have, is this okay?
Yeah, no, this is exactly what we're looking for.
Okay.
I mean, I know we're not taking notes, but trust me, this is the advent of video, and I'll regurgitate this in AI.
Yeah, and I'm taking some notes too,
Typically,
so,
though, half timbers, like, you should just have like half timbers, black, brown.
are you on? Mike?
No, am I? No.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Typically, half timbers are what colors? Black, right? Brown.
not really black, it's more like charcoal.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all right. So let's just set the standard. So timber should be charcoal, black,
Wood colored.
wood color, right? Let's just set the standard for what they should be and only give so many choices.
We're talking about
Brown.
facades now, though, right?
No,
No.
we're talking timbers.
Well, we're talking both.
So just,
Talking both,
so just
okay.
very quickly, so you did approve a black half timber this evening.
Right.
FYI.
And I think it's beautiful.
And one thing to remember with the color black, and we did identify this in our staff report, and it's common knowledge,
It's
maybe.
not going to be black for long.
It's not going to be black for long.
Exactly.
Sun,
Yeah.
no, it'll definitely.
Sun is going to damage it.
Well, and I think too that, and this is jumping around in conversation a little, my comment to him, to asking him to consider what sheen he had on the
gloss
paint,
versus, yeah,
that is something that maybe we need to consider when we get to finalizing our half timbers, because if you're using glossy paint on the half timbers, it has a whole different aesthetic no matter what color
And
you.
if you guys haven't been over there yet, you should go over there. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yeah. But so half timber should have like,
Well, let's start with, let's circle back to facades and just take the colors out of this palette that we don't want for facades. So we're taking out this
The
one.
maroon,
What number across, from left to right, what number?
It is top row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that kind of maroonish brown.
4, 5.
Okay. And if I had a pencil, I'd make a mark on the book, but that's not okay. Okay, anything else on that top row?
The third from the right, which looks like white.
white would be out
Looks a little
for
too
me
light
too.
to me.
I wouldn't use white.
Okay, and which one are we talking about now?
Third from the right.
Yeah, third from last.
Oh, here, okay. Lisa, I'm marking this up and I can give it back to you. Yes. I think we need,
Most of downtown is white.
I know, we don't want that anymore.
well,
do we?
and I think that,
fair.
but I think that we need to really address the white carefully because there's so many hues of white. We
Right.
don't want to, from my perspective, I'm fine with white, but not the blue or purple bright white. It's more of a muted white.
That'd be better, because it'd be
Yeah.
old world looking, because white, that's modern looking,
Where
really.
is that on this palette? I don't even know which one that would be on this
When you
palette.
get to the whites, you need to see the actual paint
See, because
chip
actually,
to determine what color white you're talking about, I think.
but,
not even a white.
so that color, just to look, that color in the book is actually this, and it's kind of blue. So that's what I'm talking about. See, it's that one.
All I'm saying is don't limit people,
Well, and just as a reminder,
But
it's not-
that's
it's-
our job.
but don't limit them. That's not fair.
again, just as a sort of reminder that this is the handbook, the point of the palettes is a starting point, and in our objective standards, it provides an out, which means that you can always make an exception. So and that's what I stated earlier in this conversation is, if an applicant so chooses to utilize a color that is not in the adopted palette, city staff lets them notifies them that it's not in the adopted palette, so you should select another color. If an applicant wants to continue on with that color due to for whatever reasons, then city staff will turn and say, okay, applicant, that's fine. Please provide the reason and rationale for DRC to make the exception findings. So it's not necessarily limiting the applicant, but it makes the applicant do a little bit more work in terms of why should an exception be granted.
And we kind of had that happen with the gathering table, and because we didn't have standards in place, and because they came up with an example in Denmark of an old building, we didn't have an out as a committee
Yeah.
to deny it. By having these standards in place, though, we will have that ability, because that wouldn't, that's something along the lines of the third row down on the far right. It's, it's even deeper than that color.
And then as sort of and as a final sort of just caveat to this discussion, while
Thank you.
let's say an applicant goes down this road and goes before this body and the DRC denies the color, the applicant has every single right to appeal your decision.
Correct.
So it's always something to keep in mind. I know it hasn't been spoken about very often, nor were applicants previously notified of decisions of the previously to myself and Lisa that of DRD decisions were able to be appealed. But we as city staff make it a very prominent point. even on their notice of approvals, we let them know, hey, if you want to appeal this approval, be our guest. Here's the information. Here's when you need to turn in your appeal by. And again, that's us doing our due diligence and ensuring that an applicant fully understands that their actions are very much appealable.
Thank you, Raphael. So in looking at, these are the top two here. So this is actually not at all white, it's light blue.
Light blue.
Yeah, so it's probably okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, okay. Then going down to the
Esther?
next, yeah,
The only other one on that top row is sample 5, which is a little mustardy, but maybe,
sample 5,
oh, number 5 in that top row.
5 from the left.
1,
Yes,
2,
thank
3,
you.
4.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3,
This
4,
one here?
5.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I see the picture and it has lines in it, and I don't really know what that means. I don't know if it means it's a brick or,
Right, so I feel like there's better options in that colors.
and Melissa, I think you have a good point. Look at the book and you'll see why. So you can see just kind of barely in here, it almost appears that that is one of those kind of ochre bricks as opposed to a paint color. So should we put an X through that?
Are we talking about this one?
No, we're talking about that one.
I think this one right here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Right next to the red.
yeah.
Yeah,
All righty.
It looks kind of
There's a lot of other
dirty.
nicer mustardy color.
Yeah.
yeah, that's my feeling.
And especially when we get to the next palette as well. So could you pass that book
Yeah.
back? Thank you. Okay, so that's the top row. Is there anything else in the top row that we should be Xing out? We're thinking facades only here.
Are we keeping,
So
no-
crossed out 2 of them.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'm looking at, as we go across the top, there's the next one that's kind of that mustard color with the lines. It's a similar to what we just crossed out. I think there are better options on our next palette as
agree.
well.
okay,
Okay.
that's
Which one is this
6
now?
from the,
It's right
6 from the
above
right.
the
That one.
classicism, or neoclassicism. I can't
And
see.
and the book has much better color and images, so that's why I'm referencing the book as we're doing that, and they really do look like those are bricks almost, don't they? Is that what it is, Raphael, do you think?
Yeah, there's a section that says woodwork, and then obviously the neoclassic. So I would assume with the bricks, it's a painted brick and or the actual brick material that's utilized.
Yeah, it looks more like brick material.
And if that's the case on the brick material, I know we discussed in the objective design standards that they have a reddish or yellowish hue. So if we needed to dial in the yellowish hue a little bit, we most certainly can and provide a little bit better examples.
Actually, I would suggest omitting that, because that's really more contemporary. So,
Duly noted.
yeah. And then if bricks are painted, yeah, but not to start with. Okay, so we're top row, we eliminated 4 now, okay? All right, so now we're going to the next row, which is definitely defined as woodwork. So you can see there's another one that's pretty brown looking. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th one in there. It's, if you look at the thing where it says fire 1728, there's one that's kind of greenish, and then to the left.
I wonder if it's purple, maybe a little maroon.
Yeah, it looks more like a half timber color than a body facade color.
Okay.
All right, anything else in that row?
What's the woodwork for? Woodwork is the trim?
I don't exactly know what it's, if it's rough, I couldn't tell you. Because it doesn't seem to appear on any of these images.
Because there sure is a lot of blue in there. We don't need all those blues.
No, I think that at this point, it's just like no, we don't. But we're telling them what we definitely don't want in a
Right.
hue, and then we can narrow it down and see how much different the colors look again on his screen versus the book.
Right.
So our printout's really dull, yours is really bright, and the book is somewhere in between.
Right.
And that's why I wanted the book to come in specifically.
I'm just not sure what the woodwork is for.
I think we ignore that because
Yeah.
we're looking at facades. So
Yeah.
just ignore that it says woodwork.
Okay.
And are you comfortable with those being facade colors then? Because there's some
Yeah,
pretty
Yeah.
deep,
for sure.
pretty colors there. Okay, so then we're going on to the next row, which is these. It starts right here.
The late classicism.
Yes. So if we want to keep up with what we did before, the second one there looks like it goes back in that same,
Yeah, the wood.
yeah. And again, it has those lines on it, so I don't think it's actually intended the way
So-
we are looking at it.
So this one, are we still doing facade colors?
Yes, yeah.
So this one I think is ugly.
It looks better, but it's not great, so I think I'd be comfortable eliminating it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have
Is
objections?
that right?
Yeah.
This one to me looks like the
Yes.
timber color.
Yeah.
Agreed, especially with the lines on it.
Right.
That's great. Keep going, Jennifer.
Well, I think this color's hideous. I would not want to see this on a facade,
Okay, look at it here. It's not so bad.
see?
Yeah. So,
But to me, this
Do you
is
wanna-
much more of a lighter color, like a brownish brown, but that color right there is like the salmon.
I don't like salmon and,
Yeah.
Now,
okay, so we're going to take the salmon out.
yep.
Okay, keep going right down that row.
um,
I didn't realize that was up there. That's much better.
isn't it?
Yeah. And we do have a person in the room if you
Oh, that's
choose-
my hubby.
Oh,
He
okay.
wants dinner.
I did not want to ignore anybody who wished to
he's-
speak. Saying get with it. Okay, thank you. So let's keep going across. What about the other lined ones?
So, so I think, how is everybody feeling about this color?
Here it is in the book, Jennifer. You can see what the hue they're going to be picking up.
No.
Yeah, see, in the book, it looks so much better than it does right there.
So yeah, I'm kind of fine with
I
it.
like that.
Yeah,
Are you?
I don't like
Yeah.
this color.
it's that kind of muted. So we took that out.
What about this one? Everyone?
I'm fine with
It's
that.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I think we have to have a nice
Color?
variety for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's more brown in the book, that's pretty.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
just looks dirty to me. But
It's dirty.
yeah, do we want to take that out? We've
Yeah.
got better options.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
better options.
All right, keep going. And then the
This
next one
one?
looks more brick.
Same,
or-
I wouldn't
Yeah.
do that one either.
Bricky color.
Okay, and
This
then the
one?
next one looks
Dirty.
dirty again.
Dirty. This one?
I like that one.
Okay, we'll keep it then.
This
Okay.
one?
No.
Yeah, it looks
Meh.
much like a brick.
Yeah.
Although, in a way, if you have bricks, but I think we have, again, better options on our other color palette
Color
here.
palette.
Yeah,
This one looks dirty.
okay. Did we take out the one next to the red? I
This
can't
one?
remember. No, the one on that one.
Yeah, we
left
did,
that
I
one.
think.
Yeah, I am.
Dirty.
Okay, I'm okay, and it doesn't look great in the book either. And then we already took out the one at
brown.
the end.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so now we're coming to the bottom row.
So these to me are all like, I mean,
They're all actually shades of blue. They
Blue.
don't translate well there. But it is good to have some of those lighter shades of blue. I'm looking at what's on the other palette
blues,
here.
grays.
I think we need to have some of the variation
Like
that's
sure. Like
present
these.
For
there.
sure. This color, right here, this one.
Which one?
This one,
Point.
right here. Ugly.
Yeah.
Aw. So,
You mean the baby poop colored
Yeah,
one?
that's
I'm
what I was gonna
sorry.
Baby poop is out.
I'm saying that to non-mothers, but, you know, yeah.
What is it?
Baby poop color number 1.
oh, yeah,
Shape.
You
definitely.
have to be a little more specific for me.
It is, here,
2-month-old baby.
That one.
It depends on what they're eating, but I think this one too.
I'm not sure.
that's too dark, I think, to go with half
They all
timber,
look
so. So the next one's the kind of red, which to me looks,
It's okay.
yeah, I like
Right?
that red,
This
yeah.
I'm not sold on.
Salmony again.
Yeah.
But I think that, let's see, what do we have on our, keep referencing the other color palettes too.
No, it's
I don't-
probably
To me,
more
it's
like
similar
this.
to
Don't you like
this one
Rosa?
Here, but it might be different in the book too.
See, that looks more pink to me, and then this looks peach to me.
Peachy.
So I don't have a problem with it.
All right.
I don't love it or anything, but I don't have a problem with it
And I
either.
think we've got the light blue, more blue, then we have a green. This is too dark.
Yeah, the dark,
Yeah, I already
dark,
crossed that one
yeah,
out.
should come out simply because we're looking at half timbers.
Right, green, and then we're back to this salmony peach color thing.
I crossed
It's-
that one out.
It's when the ramparts fall. Again, I don't have an issue with it.
And then we're back with red. And then this pretty yellow, which is really pretty.
Yeah, which is
Is that
super.
red or is it more purple?
Do you have that light thing? Hold on a second. We're going to get the magic light.
This one,
Oh, is that where we're at?
No.
No, we're way
We're
over
here.
here.
We're here.
Even with my glasses. Well, they're pretty similar, these two, right?
Okay,
I
so
know.
I'm doing the outside light.
It's a little dark.
That's a little darker.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. It's kind of purpley. It's like
I think that
It is
the
like a-
thing that we don't see in the old world is purple. I mean, it isn't part of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Doing a good job.
So we're looking at the part under ramparts fall, and we're saying no to the second one there. That's the kind of reddish, purplish one. The next one's super
should have brought in my.
common, the yellow.
Although it could be more like this, right?
Yeah. But that's why these are actually a little bit easier to see.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think that when we come back,
yeah,
we'll be paring them down and,
looking at the.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then the next, then we have that, which is so totally typically Danish. The next one is, it looks better here than up there.
Okay,
Because
good.
that color
Yeah.
doesn't look good up there.
Green.
Then we get to a very deep green, which surprised me that it was so deep here. That was interesting to me.
I like it.
Okay, then
Good option.
what about the one next to it?
No,
Doesn't look good in the book or on
ugly.
screen. So it'd be
This
the
one's
between the two green lines.
Kind of a light brown? Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the green, I feel like the same about that one.
Yeah, that one's really bad.
Yeah.
I am not enamored with the next red one. To me,
No.
that isn't,
Too bright.
Pitchy.
yeah. It's kind of the Danish flag color that is a little competitive. What about the next brown one?
No.
Don't like that either.
And then we've got the deeper green, and then we've got another brown. Are we just going to take the browns out?
I think you should
I
take,
would.
take one of the greens out. We don't need all
Yes.
those dark greens.
I would say take the middle one,
Right.
or which is actually, yeah. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Actually, you can take the rest of the rows out.
But I thought you loved them all, Jennifer.
I do, but I don't think we need all, like,
Right.
I want one dark green, one light green,
Right.
one lighter green, like, you know.
I think she's right. I think we should take all the rest of it.
So Esther, I have a question.
Take all the rest of them out, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I
So-
would leave the last green one.
Yeah. My question is that
They're all kind of
some of these on a broad expanse is going to be strong, right?
Yes.
That some of these in a smaller setting or with, panels or trim. And so it's going to be,
Brick.
yeah, it's going to be kind of a case by case, like, if someone, say we have
Yep.
this red here and we've all approved it as the color palette and someone wants, 500 square feet,
Wants the whole Rasmussen's arches.
what do we do?
Right.
Because it's in the book.
Well, that does concern me. It does look better in this book, by the
Right.
way, than it does here. That's why, as we're looking at them, I think it's really important to look at the more kind of organic version of it,
Right.
rather than the nail polish red, as I call it.
Yeah.
We need to differentiate between facades and trim.
Yes.
Color may be fine for trim, but not for a facade.
Well,
Right.
and for trim, it could all you may not you could select a few colors white, as a trim, but then it could be a little bit more encompassing where a trim says, these are potential trim colors. However, the trim, and then instead quantify it.
Right.
Trim colors shall be of a either opposite or not opposite. It's a terrible contrasting color,
Right.
etc. And then again, as we put together the handbook, That means we refine our processy a little bit in terms of how we bring in recolors and repaints, and we have a checklist, if you haven't heard. And on the checklist, we basically ask for, this is what needs to get done. We need a photo of these two buildings, this building to the east, to the west, and et cetera. And then please provide a color sample on the building. So essentially, again, we're trying to ensure that the color palette and the color that's selected fits with the content and the actual materials of the building.
Correct.
So my feeling is that we can't get too lost in the weeds, that if there's a trim and a facade color, sometimes a half step up or down really pops, and sometimes it doesn't. And if we don't have that literally on here, it's probably close. I mean, we're just, this exercise is good because we're eliminating stuff that we think is not useful.
And hence why city staff wanted you to start with elimination.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
right.
eliminating is always easier,
Right.
than saying what we actually want. Because it's easier to say, yeah, I don't want that at all.
Right.
Versus then making, and again, we're coming back with a hue of colors and sort of a range.
Right.
And essentially, and again, it doesn't have to be color exact.
Right.
That's the biggest key.
Right.
Is
It's a guide.
It's a guide. And so if something necessarily, isn't the exact color match, but falls within the hue, that gives the DRC and the applicant a really good sense of where they're going to go with the potential color of a building.
Right.
Which I think is why this is a really important exercise. So
Right.
now that we've had your comments, Melissa, let's pop back up to the top. Okay, but just to clarify, on that bottom row, we ended up doing green. No, we did. Do you want those greens in though? Didn't you?
At
Like
least one.
the number
or two. Yeah,
one
these last
Maybe the
two
last
are-
one.
Yeah.
and the last one.
And this last one.
Yes.
But for the most part, the
And then
rest of
we
them can
X
go
the rest of them
bye-bye.
out.
We don't need all that.
I'd like to revisit the top row.
Okay.
With the red colors here, I think we should just eliminate them and look at our other color chart for the red.
Okay.
Which
Because
would be these guys, I
Yeah,
think, right?
yeah, because I think that these are bad representations
Yeah.
Pretty
here.
red, yeah.
Yeah.
And this looks like orangey.
And what about, do we even do the same for down here? The, right below it, the
Yeah.
red below?
Sure.
Okay, so we're taking the reds out of this color palette and looking at them on our
On here.
other color
Good.
palette.
Good.
Even
Okay.
this one.
Yeah, the reds on so the context of the book is the reds definitely are, oh God, I'm about to put my silly professor hat on. But it's more of a Baroque, darker color and pigments due to the materials.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why the reds just look so deep in contrast based on the materials that were available during the Baroque period. Okay, no more.
Well, and I
No,
think
it's
that's.
great. It's
I-
great. Keep
and-
going.
And
Very
I think
interesting.
that's really good.
Good
And
point.
as
Because
we.
I like those.
Because as we look at these, we do want to have a deep red, and we've
Yeah.
already
Right.
approved Luca with a relatively deep red,
Yes.
and it'll be stunning. And as you go through town, you'll see others that are a deep red, but they're not. And I know this is the wrong description, but I think of like that lipstick or
Right, a
fingernail
fire
polish.
engine,
Yeah, fire engine red. They're not that. Exactly, they're more muted, so we still have a pop,
Right.
but a pop that fits more of an organic color palette.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, so we just took out a lot of red, so we left that one in, Jennifer.
On the bottom here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have that one still in. Do we want to take that one out?
Yes.
We're talking about row 2,
This one here.
where it says fire 1728 and the
You wanna
red
take
right
this
about that, above that.
Right? Okay.
I wonder, and we're looking at the book because they're significantly different in the book. Do we just take that one out too?
Yeah, because
That's okay.
on
I do
page
too.
24, there's
think
some
it's
nice
okay.
reds.
Right.
So,
I just don't think we need like. all
Yeah,
the
we're going back to
blues,
this
like,
one then next.
We don't need
Yeah.
all the blues.
Okay.
Get rid of.
Here's this.
Get rid of half those blues.
So on the bottom
love the
row,
French
we ended up
blue, though. That's my
circling the ones
favorite.
Oh,
we're
I
keeping 'cause
love
we
French
hacked out so
blue.
many. So do you
I
wanna
love
take
blue,
and make
period.
notes
Me
with
too.
that? Oh, I need the
Hello.
back. Yeah, do you want?
no, I'm happy with.
Do you like
yeah.
blue? I don't think so.
I'm gonna, you know what, though, I need the back of it. Sorry.
Sorry.
Two-sided printing.
Silly.
So it sounds like we want to move on to the next
Yes.
page.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
again, that way, it sounds like the comments were very constructive on the colors of Copenhagen and what we want to take out.
Yes.
So if we want to move on to the next page, which is obviously, it's a bigger chart. I'll flip the page for those that are viewing online. And again, there is a color differential between what's on the digital screen, what was in your packet, and what's actually in
See
the
what
book.
these look like versus these, because I
Wow,
had
big
said I
difference.
wasn't a fan of that, and yet I think
And I
that's
love
lovely.
that.
Yeah.
By that meaning,
There's the difference in the
difference.
colors
So, see,
between the,
And look
Okay.
at your computer is so gorgeous, and yet these colors are so muted here.
well, they're more of the organic tones where those are, and you can see because his top, that's bright blue. However, somebody at home looking at that
Yeah.
may see an entirely different color.
Right.
And that's why we're sitting in here referencing.
Can we go
the-
off of this chart?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we're using this as
Because
our
your colors on your
notepad.
computer are gorgeous. But
so, and then again, on that one in particular from the iHouse book, the top colors actually include the Pantone colors,
Perfect.
which is
Yes.
very easier to color match
Right.
I like
comparative
that
to the
whole
color of
chart.
Copenhagen.
just go with the
I
whole
had a
chart.
feeling you were going to say that.
Okay, I would
Except
take an exception
that.
to the lapis. Yeah.
Except for that.
Okay.
Okay.
The one that looks like lime.
I went
Lime,
through
this
town
one?
yesterday, and like I said, crossed off all the ones that I
Great.
didn't like. So I'll tell you which ones I don't like, but you
Good.
guys all may like them. I don't
Yeah, but
like
you don't want
any
a
of
full
the bottom
facade
three
that
here.
color.
Oh, you don't?
But then you,
No, I don't like any of those three.
this is
oh, I
super traditional Danish.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay?
Yeah,
I'm just
it
telling you
is.
what my vote is.
Good, keep
I don't like
going.
either of those two.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
all agreed on that.
By those meaning
If you're looking at this online, you'll see he's speaking about the kind of, underneath the historic,
Right under the
the
letter
blue
F in
and the
facade.
black.
yeah. So the
That one and the
blue,
one underneath it.
the blue and the
Again, we're talking about
We don't
facade
want,
colors.
so lapis lazuli is out.
Okay.
We're talking about facade colors. I would hate to
Correct.
see a facade that color.
Agreed.
Okay, then the
Oh, I
other,
love it.
other ones I don't like
But
in
then you,
that
what do you do
column
for half
are
timber?
You don't. You
That-
paint over
let's
it, just
see,
like,
where
this
are
is
they?
like the color of.
But that's not allowed.
That one and that one.
So that
The
being
purple. Okay, so we're gonna go over this again as a group because we're getting one person's
Well, yeah.
notes here.
Now I'll be quiet because you guys can outvote me on all of it.
Okay,
No, we love when.
okay, so, I would.
He's our resident male. We need to listen to him.
I would start with column 1 at the top. We
Okay.
have a color which I think is excellent for half timbers.
Yes.
But it could be a body color if you had a darker half timber and actually kind of be stunning.
Be pretty.
So
I like it.
If
I,
it's not too big of a building.
I like
right, and I think that is,
We're still getting ahead.
yeah.
We should just say,
Facade, facade.
Yeah. So I think I would be comfortable with the group of, the first group of 4.
Me too.
Yes.
I know we've got a dissenter. Okay, so now we're gonna keep going down the page where we start with the kind of purple. We've decided no purple.
Lapis lazuli is out.
I am a fan of removing the Berliner Blau.
I agree.
Yeah, which is the kind of almost black.
Yeah.
Trying to see what color this next one is. Looks
It's very
awfully
light.
purple.
Yeah.
I
don't
feel
like
like
it.
that one's almost too purple.
I think so too. Lavender.
So we're
almost.
taking out, you can't tell on our printed or on the
first three.
screen. So that takes the column 1, 2, 3 is out.
I think the next one is
4
very
is,
slate blue.
Love it.
yeah. This one,
No.
the next one,
No, I don't need
okay?
it.
No.
We all agree. That's,
We agree with
Wow, Richard.
A
okay.
lot of these came from my wife.
Oh, now the truth comes out.
My
So,
wife is a retired designer.
oh, excellent.
There you go.
Thank her for the input.
Yes.
Then we go on to the raw umber, basically, is what it's saying it is, I think.
Or half timber, maybe?
And then we go down to the next one, the umbra, which is basically about the color of gathering table.
Which I love. I love it.
So I'm not a fan. What do we,
I voted no on that one.
okay,
I would
sorry,
say no, too.
Jennifer.
Sorry, honey.
Okay, but
People
let's,
have to be updated. Come on.
No,
now.
but
What's
it's
up-
okay in a home. but
what's
not in-
above, the one above, the brownish one? How do we feel about that one?
No, no.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. The one at the bottom, or no, it's not the bottom, the next one, I think it looks great. But accented with brick, a bright door, and, could look good. Yes, it's a dull color, but I think we have to have a color palette that includes those colors as well.
I think we
So-
already have enough dull colors in the town.
Well, do we want to not say, I think we should leave
So
it
if you're
in
gonna, okay,
now.
I'll trade you this. If you're gonna go for this, then we're gonna get rid of one of these up here.
Well, what I'm thinking is
Let's do
that
a trade.
maybe what we do is we get rid of some of these.
Ah.
Because these are much easier for staff to work
Yes.
with.
Okay.
So it would make
That's
the
a deal.
process simpler to include this, but exclude something on our other
That's
That's a
palette.
deal.
So
Okay,
Esther and Jennifer, I think if we go through and we're just making like rough cuts here, and then next time we meet, we'll have the
Narrow it
yellow
down.
color family,
We'll
we'll
narrow
have
it
the red
down.
color family. We won't be going back and forth with
Right.
different
Right.
print.
and then
And
we'll
the
probably
different-
narrow it again.
Right, but still, we'll have families of color, red, yellows, cream, whatever. And then I just don't want us to get too lost in the weeds on one specific color
I
because there's
agree.
a range.
So we can
I
always
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And then
eliminate it later.
I think that what you can't see on your printout are these bottom two, and I think both of those seem like fine to include. We need some of that.
I
So
agree.
then we move up to, and bear with me, I'm gonna put this closer to the light.
Yeah, I'm good with
I do too.
Okay, so for those, if anybody's online, we're looking at column 2.
Look at how different.
And the top
at how
4,
different.
right, and that's why I asked
Yeah.
Lisa to go pick up the actual palette.
Yeah.
Because of this. So we're going with the top 4, all
Love it.
approved, and then is there anything in the second column? I think there's some very dark, the
I love them
blacks.
all.
I
I
would-
do. I love every one of
I didn't
them.
like that one or those two.
I don't like the dark black ones.
For-
I
for a
agree. What
facade,
do you
that's
think,
awful dark
Melissa?
facade.
Okay,
Guys,
Sorry, honey.
In the next section, in the green
you guys have to be.
which one?
second
don't.
green down.
You have
Okay.
to be somewhat
Now look at it
modern.
here, Melissa, too.
Yes. You should give an
have to be
option.
anything.
Well, this is
Yes.
why you can
They
agree.
could go to
to
Los
disagree.
Olivos.
Do you still think that when you look at it over here?
I guess on this printout, it just looks like.
On that printout, it looks bad.
Yeah.
agreed.
Okay, leave
Do you
it.
want me to pass it down for you to take a closer look? Okay. So are we including number 3 in the green field here, which is black?
No.
Okay, all right. Number 4, yes.
Yeah, actually, it looks better over there than it did over here, right?
Yes.
It looked a little more
Yes,
limey
because
over
here it's kind of almost sagey.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, and then we took out the next 2 dark ones. We're leaving in what looks horrible
Lisa, I'm
on our
gonna pay you
printout,
extra.
but is
Slip one of
actually a
those in.
kind of grayish. And then we've got a blue-gray, and then we've got 2 more whites.
I think we should, like the gathering table color, it should belong in here.
We have, actually, I would disagree with that.
You could go to
I love
Sarlus
that
and Sons
color.
and see it in person.
I love it. It's
Okay.
very modern.
Are we okay with the 2 whites on the bottom?
Yes.
All right.
Very nice.
Okay, so we now have one more palette here, which is, and Lisa, this is now complete. Do we have this palette too? Isn't this the new one that Ben Peterson brought?
Yes, that's the new one. We scanned it as much as we can, and I don't think we brought that one in though.
Could we get it?
I
No, it's
have it on.
actually a
it's-
painter's.
I
yeah.
don't have the.
You know what? Why don't you give it back to me?
Yeah, I
while
don't
you're
have the-
going?
It looks a
Copy
lot
on me.
different on your screen, boy.
Yeah, we can't really tell the colors without having the actual palette, Raphael.
Maybe, he has it up on screen here.
Well,
Yeah, but it's not accurate.
based on sort of what you've given us in terms of between that and the colors of Copenhagen. I think that's pretty sufficient to try to then
Compile?
what you want in there.
Well, I think there's some really good reds on here potentially. That was my recollection, is that they had see these gold tones here, which look like orange on the screen.
They look great.
I really feel like we need that palette, and maybe not tonight, but I don't think we should exclude it.
So my idea is maybe what we can do is take, we can, at the next meeting, we'll take some of these colors and put them into hues. And then we can identify which ones came from the handout, the pamphlet is really what it is.
Yeah.
And then if you want to axe them out, you just let us know.
Okay. Thank you. So we now have our facades. Now we need to talk a little bit about, you want us to go on and talk trim?
Well, we can, or we could stop there and let us compile the facades.
Okay.
And then maybe instead, because facades and half timbers are pretty much the easy ones. And then for trims, maybe that rather than a palette for the trims, it becomes a language in terms of contrasting and then complementary, and then instead basically come out and state yellow hues and blue hues shall not mix, or something, just color combos that.
Well, that's Swedish. We already know that.
I didn't
I'm
quite
kidding.
realize that until I
Gotta have some levity at this point.
my wife is Dutch, so it's red and blues.
And actually, it is a common combination. And I think that what you're saying about trim color makes a lot of sense to me, because I think that's going to be really difficult to hone in on. There's wording that we could potentially use to exclude some, which is, that's kind of like day glow colors. Yeah, and there's descriptive ways.
And again, and that is, again, as I come back to from the many years of kind of doing this, it's always easy to exclude it and then provide the example. So what is high glow? What is fluorescent? And in this instance, maybe the trim colors is an appropriate time to have the creams and the whites and a little bit of the grays, so that way it now provides a little bit of a guide, but then it's more textualized of, okay, here are some whites and grays that could potentially be used. However, here's the rubric for contrasting, complementary, and these colors, and we just put it plainly, we're not going to accept these sort of colors, and
Right.
and we put it in the book in combos. Yeah.
Well, and I think we need to maybe consider complementary as opposed to contrasting in some instances, because there's really different meanings there. Doors, I believe, is where we're going to have to be getting into some of these deep colors and allow that, but again, keeping it into the colors that are complementary with the palette that we have put together. Because it's great to see some of these buildings, especially the ones where they've got like 3 colors on it. A lot of buildings in town used to do that, and it's really labor intensive.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's very few doing that anymore.
And again, it comes back to what I said earlier, is this is a standard. So if that is what was done previously in our village, and again, this is what drives our village, what makes us unique aside from the architecture, it is the colors. So if we want to, thou shalt make a standard, which is paint the door a separate color. Yes, it is labor intensive. But again, this is the contractual agreement we have.
Yeah.
We've outlaid our standards. Here are things that you can do to differentiate yourself. But you have to meet our standards if you want to be in our community.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it has to be a standard.
No,
I think that it can be an option. I think it'd be
a guide.
I'd be reluctant to make it a standard, because I think there are places where that would not be an optimal standard, especially when you go down the street, so to speak. But what I really, keep circling back to this, and Raphael mentioned it as to going forward, is when the applicant comes in, it's not just their building, it's their building in context of the
Right.
neighborhood that it's going to be occupying, or
Right.
however you want to say that. Because that makes it a whole different conversation.
I do have a request. I don't know if this is legit, but as we get further down this process, I would love to hear from either an artist or someone that knows color and paint and talk about, what works with contrasting and complementary colors. How do we define what's pleasing? And I know it's very subjective, but there are people that make a living out of analyzing how colors compare and contrast.
Like using a color wheel.
Well, but
Yeah.
someone who could lead us through that last phase.
And again, the point of this is to not dictate to applicants that aspect. It is to provide a guide. It is to provide a starting point. And this document ultimately in the end is a public document where, and we've had phone calls where people, especially after certain buildings were painted and they were very polarizing is probably the best way of putting it. And they've offered their services, to which my response is, well, thank you very much. However, all these documents are public, and you have that ability to bring in your expertise and comment on it and provide as a public person making those comments.
Right.
But again, the intention of this is to provide a starting point, provide a guidelines, provide a rubric to basically say, look, if you are in the onus of you don't know where to start, or essentially you as someone who wants to redevelop a property or create a new building here, the easiest way to get from point A to point B is by doing these things.
Right.
And a developer who is looking to develop in our community, who is looking to, unfortunately, turn a profit, and that's because that's what they're supposed to do, usually will find the easiest path to least resistance.
Right. My point with having an expert or someone who could guide us with the language, like, okay, what is pleasing, or what
Aesthetically.
Yeah, and just the language of how we make that decision from
So-
a color point of view.
Here's how I've learned a lot of the vocabulary that I use while I'm here is when I first stepped onto this role, before I agreed, I reached out to a designer friend, a painter friend, a lighting expert, a landscape architect, and I consult them before the meeting when we have our packet and get input from the professionals ahead of time, especially on things that aren't my expertise or within my scope of, knowledge, which is most of the stuff. So I found that it's really helpful. In other words, create your support team that can give you information that'll help with the decision-making when you're here. Because every single applicant, it's a different conversation. The biggest part that I've found super important is the findings from the staff, and that has been getting better and better and better, because we depend on what you're telling us to also guide us in the decision-making process. So by putting all these parts into place, they can guide the applicant. So when it comes to us, they're not saying, what color should I have it? And it's not just way out there, with exceptions, I'm sure. But even with signs, we've had people come in with super complex signs, and they've come back with a different application for the kind of the same concept, but something that works. And it really has to do with having specifics in place and having staff find it. So on that note, any other comments on color palettes? Okay, for tonight. So at this point, where are we?
I would recommend opening it for public hearing.
Oh,
just,
thank you.
Just so we procedurally have it
right.
there.
So I'm going to open this up for public comment. I see nobody in the room, and I see our attorney, hello, on Zoom. So we will close it for public comments now, and I believe that we have provided instruction to staff, and you will be returning with a palette for us to review in the future
Right.
meeting.
So, yes, thank you for the direction. This is actually a discussion that was great. FYI, I know a little disorganized, especially for the viewing public. But Lisa has the information. And again, we will come back at the next meeting with sort of a hue, color, and try to develop the rudimentary language a little bit. And then we'll start piecing together.
Okay,
That's great.
excellent. Okay, so committee member comments on anything in general? Okay, city staff comments.
Well, thank you. So we will be having a June meeting. Do we have a sign or two on the docket? So we actually do have business, and then we'll continue on with this. We will actually also be feeding the beginnings of our new sign ordinance. So we will take it in pieces this time. So we'll start with temporary signs, and we'll basically do an outlay in a rubric, very kind of similar, but a little bit kind of like tonight, where it's very much a discussion between essentially a working meeting. Hopefully, we have public that is here to comment, but they're free to comment. And then again, we'll just feed pieces, and this will be essentially our work effort for the summer. So this is your summer homework assignment.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're going to be doing color palette and signs
Oh,
in the
yeah.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, can I step back and make a committee member comment, even though we already passed that?
Sure.
Today's Newshawk feed had a really good article about Santa Barbara and temporary signs, most specifically the A-frame signs. I really recommend that you read it because it certainly is directly relevant to us here in the community and as we sit up here.
Right. So again, we'll feed it in pieces and try to do, it'll basically be what I call scaled back. So essentially what we're doing is we're writing the ordinance for what it needs to look like, but then present a little bit more scaled back version of it. So it kind of makes sense to y'all.
This is colors or signs? I'm sorry.
Signs.
Okay, thank you.
And then currently our planning commission meeting will be meeting, or they met this last meeting was regarding fire hazard maps, which our city council will be looking at the fire hazard map and looking for adoption on May 27th. So that's on their radar. Our planning commission will be meeting in June as well. They will be adopting the capital improvement projects for the year, as well as a general plan amendment. So before this scares anybody, the general plan amendment is extremely technical. It's actually amending one paragraph of the general plan to ensure consistency with the new state law for the local hazard mitigation plan. So extremely technical. 2 paragraphs inserted so that we can be reimbursed in case of emergency. So that's going to the Planning Commission and then to Council in July. As far as projects updates, we kind of heard a little flavor of phase 1 of Denmarket Square. That is, again, in plan review. It is a mixed-use project, so the proposed project is looking to convert the upstairs offices to residential uses, as in residential units. And then we don't really have any applications right now. We are actually working through quite a few new temporary use permits. So those are for live music during daytime hours under objective standards of hours of operation, et cetera. And we're just working through our new building processes and just doing our thing. Unfortunately, as many of you know, the water wheel building did have a substantial damage due to a fire recently, but due to the quick work of our fire department, it was put out and limited to the one building. However, the building is mostly destroyed.
Total loss.
It is. So the applicant's working with their insurance company right now and looking to demo the site and clean up. Again, what we're doing this evening has very much pertinence. Well, although very fun, it is very pertinent because that will be a major redevelopment site in the future. And so with that concludes my update.
Raphael, next meeting's the 19th?
Yes, that is the last. Oh, almost forgot. So next June's meeting is not on Thursday. It is on Wednesday, the 18th. And the reason being is city staff has a holiday that day on the Thursday, the 19th. So it will be Wednesday, the 18th. It's in your schedule, in your calendar. Yeah, we celebrate.
Thank you for pointing
Juneteenth.
that out, because I did not catch that. I'm going to ask to back up again to item 5, committee member comments. May I do that? Because I wanted just to mention that I was at the city council meeting on a Monday night where Raphael presented to the city council a recommendation that this committee, this body, remains active and part of the city plan, so to speak. And I just want to thank you for doing that. If you don't know, our former city council member had proposed that the body be eliminated, and it was a 3-2 vote to move forward with the discussion about the potential elimination of the DRC at a future meeting. Raphael brought it back to the city council at this meeting where it was unanimously, well, there was an absence, but it was approved to remain active. So we have been endorsed in our efforts by not just the staff, but the city council as well.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. And it's more of a thank you to our members here that are sitting before us, because I will be the first to admit that when I took on this position as the planning manager, we essentially had to establish the guardrails per state law and per federal law, and that was hard. And some other previous members I felt to take it on, but at the same token, city staff, as stated in the report, we didn't provide the DRC the tools necessary. And Esther has touched on this evening, but we are providing more. The staff reports are tying back to our adopted documents. They're tying back to findings. Everything ties back. And so that in city staff's opinion, enables this DRC to make a fact-based decision versus one that it's emotional based and or just it looks, their feelings. So we're always going back to what's been adopted, what's been our standards, et cetera. And again, that's something that I myself and Randy, our city manager, set out to change. We changed the way we accepted applications. For those that don't know, we actually used to, I think, was it 2 weeks prior? Or even a week up? We would accept applications almost a week prior to a meeting, which then required Lisa and the previous planning manager to culminate a staff report very quickly. And again, I felt that was a disservice to not only Lisa and the other staff members, but the DRC members as well, because we couldn't provide enough information. We've changed that process, so now when we take we can take up to 30 days to review. And when we find something, we let the applicant know, hey, this isn't consistent with the code. Do you want to change this? 9 times out of 10, they change it. And so that's why you see more items coming into conformity with our codes, because we now have a lot of time to review, adequately provide comments, and give applicants an option. So.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of signs, plans that were missing significant portions of information that made it almost impossible to reach decisions. So it made for, it was at times what became a very adversarial relationship, because the applicant was expecting something and this committee was telling them something else, so we became the bad guys. And I appreciate the fact that we're no longer in that position. At times, we might feel like that a little bit, but there are findings to support that.
Right. So again, a case in point is the first item to this after or earlier was a phase 1, and then we started diving into the actual entitlement, to which we paused for and not got into it. And that's because when city staff reviewed it, we had a ton of questions. We had a ton of things that weren't answered per our code. So why would I even, on God's green earth, give it to y'all if we still have questions? So hence why we deemed it incomplete. It's out for the applicant to fix and make those comments back to us. And when it is incomplete, which means it has addressed everything in the code, or there's an issue where the DRC or the Planning Commission need to make a decision, we will give you your roads based on the code, based on what the applicant's requesting. So again, that's our commitment to you as the DRC members, is we have done our due diligence, and whenever you see an application before you, it's been vetted our way first.
That's great.
Is it the Planning Commission that wants to be Planning Commission and DRC all in one?
No.
I think
Is it
that
that
was,
their
that was a
desire?
little bit. It's hard. It's hard to really dive into what certain decisions were made, particularly during a certain time frame per COVID.
Because remember, this body was completely completely disbanded at one time, regrouped under a different name, the Branding and Design Committee. That was abandoned and then resurrected as the committee that we now are part of.
And were they always separate? Were they always two separate entities?
Yeah.
Ever since the city was formed. And in fact, that was part of the motivation for creating the city of Solvang, was to be able to take the design, control of the design here local, as opposed to it being the county where they didn't get it,
Got it.
Right.
always.
So again,
For some time.
it's good to have the two bodies, and now that again we're able to differentiate, and as I stated in the staff report, this body is intended to be that public discourse item, particularly in the face of our ever-changing state laws. So myself and Dave, we are your shepherds into the myriad of new state laws that come merrily along in September.
Well, and I think
Thank you for guiding.
the one thing that I did touch on at the city council meeting when I made some remarks was that I would like to see the council consider actually giving more teeth to this committee, because right now we are strictly an advisory body on the design. So in theory, if there was not the good relationship that there has been historically and is presently between design and planning, the planning has the prerogative to just say, nope, we're not doing, what you recommend, we're going to suggest this, or make that a condition. So eventually, I am advocating for giving us even a stronger position here.
And we were going to look into that. So, but again, very similar to tonight's item, myself and Lisa has items. We are very much articulate in terms of how we implement the DRC's actions. In the discussion item that was before you this evening, that action will be implemented as a part of the building permit. So again, we have changed the way we've done our processes internally. We let the applicants know what is expected of them, and when they don't do what's expected of them, and based on what the DRC says, they usually get a letter in the mail, a nice little nasty gram. So,
Go back.
Okay. All right, anything else? Thank you for allowing for extra time for discussion. We've got a new body and a lot going on, so I will call the meeting adjourned at 7:02.